Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, welcome to The People's View. This show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Club, and if you want to learn out more about the club, then refer to NashuaGOP.org, our website. It'll tell you that we have a meeting at the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza, and any other events that of political interest. And tonight, my co-host is Kevin Avard and Sean McGuiness, the third Republican representative from Ward 1.
Ooh, the third? I didn't hear that.
No,
I don't know. I mean, there's three of us, I guess. Carl's putting me.
We're starting off well, gentlemen. Let's talk a little bit about politics, and then we can joke about that too. Yeah. We're all waiting to see if we have another a Republican debate. That was as successful as the last one. The first one, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if I can make a little announcement, right?
Okay.
The October 26th at 6 p.m., Thomas More College in Merrimack.
Thomas More, yeah.
Thomas More College. We're going to be hosting a forum with Representative Paul Mirsky, Paul Ingripson, Dan Itzy, and Representative Sorg as well. And the main topic is going to be the history of the courts and the legislature, and how it relates to the second question on the ballot, which is
constitutional amendment,
right? Which is CACR 26, and if it gives you a historical perspective, and of course Mirsky is the one who actually sponsored the bill, so there'll be a little bit of question and answer time, and we're hoping that a lot of people come to that, because I know a lot of people are seeing, well, geez, you're messing with the Constitution, it's 200 years old, and which is the furthest thing from the truth in regards to that Article 73A, which needs to be amended.
That is a problem because, as you know, the Telegraph had an erroneous editorial in there. The normal people that would check it for the Telegraph weren't asked about it. Somebody, whoever wrote it, didn't have the correct information. And it looked like it was trying to separate, the legislature was trying to separate, get into the judicial.
And it's the furthest thing from the truth. And they're trying to set the record straight. And just for the viewers of this show, in case they do go, the amendment, CACR 26, has to do with what happened in 1978. And the Supreme Court justices, all five of them, all five Supreme Court justices agreed to the language, along with the supermajority of the House and the Senate. So that's usually a very unusual combination. And so when all of these branches agree, and believe me,
so this is needed to correct some language that was erroneously set up a while back.
It was incomplete. It basically spells out how it was actually originally intended, and because it wasn't originally intended, a great deal of hostility and tension between the House and the judiciary has occurred over the last 30 years. It's only 30 years old. So the Supreme Court justices said, look, we agreed to add this language with consent of the Senate and the House. And
clean up and better define.
Basically, and it'll make a better operation. It has the misinformation is alarming. I don't understand it.
Well, I think there's a lot of demonization on that part. They're after Bill O'Brien as the aggressive Speaker of the House, and he's a very thoughtful person. He really doesn't, in my opinion anyway, act anywhere like he's projected in the newspapers.
And Bill O'Brien has absolutely no authority over 5 Supreme Court justices.
Right.
Of
course not.
That is just not going to work. And yet, here they all come together.
And that's the part that the Telegraph missed.
Right.
They never even found out from their own.
Chose to miss.
Well,
maybe, I don't know.
There is some misinformation, and I just think from those who know better, I just find it rather alarming, and I just don't understand their intent I know one of them that was commenting on the article, I'm sure we're nameless, but he's an attorney. And, you know, the 200 years of the Constitution. Well, I want to preserve the Constitution as much as anybody. But 30 years ago, when they messed with it, they've left some stuff out. And so let's clean it up.
Well, they couldn't anticipate everything. I mean, you know, the document is a simple set of rules that should be abided by, but...
But that is the problem, that there is misinformation out there, and hopefully a show like this can help the people understand a little bit better why some of these things come up. There are signs that are going up, and I'm sure, like any constitutional amendment, they always worry that you're changing something. Well, this is something that was changed before, but incorrectly, and we're just correcting the change.
It's it's a correction. Or an enhancement.
That's right.
And it is unusual for 5 justices to agree. I mean, I was there. I was watching the hearings. We were having a grievance committee hearing, and I was going back and forth to the committee when the two, I think, is it Justice Hicks? Is it? Starts with an H. One of the, and he was speaking for the courts. There were 2 justices there, and they were introducing the language, and you know, we were kind of scratching our heads like, where's this going? But finally, you know, it makes sense, because although the branches stay separate, at least it enumerates the fact that the House still has a say in the rulemaking.
In the laws.
As
the
should
legislation.
be.
Right.
The legislature makes legislation. The Justice Department can make rules.
Right. Right. And the key is the people, I don't know why they forget this, but the House is their voice.
That's right.
And if you take their voice out of it, the House...
Most especially in the state of New Hampshire, where the representation is the closest to the people among any other state in the nation.
Right. So if they vote no, they cut off their foot.
Yeah.
It's that simple, and it really should be bipartisan, and I'm sorry that you know, I think 200...
That needs exposure.
Everything is...
It does. So anyway, I just wanted to
Partisan
bring
in the
that
end.
up as a topic.
Yeah, well, that gets us started and takes the first 5 minutes of our conversation. We're going to talk
5
about
minutes? I don't know.
Ward 1. I think we're all, you know, we're all sort of in agreement that we felt that the last 2 years were very good. Promises made, promises kept.
Yep.
We'd like to complete the cycle again. Some of the promises aren't fully vetted, and they're going to be coming back as legislation. So I don't know if you want to talk about anything in particular that you know that's coming up that was in your committees, or...
Well, you know, we had you know, I serve on Commerce and Consumer Affairs, and that was a wonderful assignment, and I'm hoping to get that again if I'm reelected. But, you know, the fun part about commerce is there's a real bipartisan camaraderie. I mean, we're all interested in the same things. So I don't suffer, fortunately, I don't suffer from any very controversial bills. I mean, these are bills that are helping small business, farmers, insurance and banking, of course, but, and I don't know about you guys, you know, we all have our committee assignments that we're responsible for. But I've made some wonderful friends on Commerce and Consumer Affairs, my Democratic friends and my Republican friends. And for the most part, you know, we were together on a lot of wonderful legislation. Now, I would say that much of that was led by some Republican initiatives, but also joined by a lot of Democrats. So it was very, very interesting 2 years. And I think a lot of good was done. I think that as the pendulum swung back, special attention was given to small business people.
Right. And that's
on both parties. I mean, we would go to lunch and talk about, you know.
I think people don't get that picture from, and for some reason,
it was very amicable.
Some people are trying to show that there's a big division.
Oh, no.
That's
not the case.
That's what you're reading.
Well, that's not the case in
and it's not
my
the case
committee.
in my
We're all
committee
friends.
either.
Yep.
But
we
do work, and most of our in public works and highways, most of it is unanimous.
Of course.
We have capital budget discussions, but we work on that. I mean, we're limited in what we can spend.
Right.
And you can
Yes,
you can
you
only
are.
borrow so much to keep your credit. We have the top rated credit, and we're very aware of that. But that's not what the people are hearing.
Well, I don't know, Kevin. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of, political, spin. I don't know.
But where's
I'm
the
not.
stand?
I don't consider myself a politician. I consider myself as a citizen legislator. We're all volunteers here.
Exactly.
I'm not into the understanding the spin, but newspapers, media, political parties spin things the way they want to spin them. The three of us work hard for 2 years, and we know the reality inside the State House, and it's generally a very civil, organized place to do business, the people's business. So
I know
I
my
wish
committee.
people would understand that.
You couldn't do any. You couldn't go through 2,000 pieces of literature without some cooperation.
Well, that's right.
And I don't think people realize that's how many bills we discussed.
Right.
Oh, was it 2,000? Easily 2,000 over 2 years.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years.
It's
And
over
when
1,000.
we all study and think about that, and
In my committee, it's a little different than yours. My committee ruffles feathers and holds some people a little bit accountable.
Well,
and whenever you do that, you interrupt the powers that are, and that you're not going to question me. Hey, we're not going to. Who are you?
the institutional.
The institution, and that's the pushback that we got.
Yeah.
And when I saw, whether it was the Attorney General or the Concord Monitor or the Teller or anybody criticize our committee, well, you're just a bunch of right-wing radicals. You know what? They weren't in there. But they weren't in there. I'm watching hours and hours, and I actually taped some of these on Speak Up.
Yeah.
And watching hours and hours of testimony, and the media was gone. I actually invited one of the media. One of the media from the Concord Monitor. I asked her to interview one of the people that was founded, and completely founded, brought in the documentation, made the accusation, supported it with evidence, went before the committee, cross-examined by both parties, still founded, and then brought her into the other room. They had an interview, and I'm scratching my head when I'm reading the article thinking, what planet are you on? And what is your agenda? And this type of thing really bothered me. Well, it holds people accountable. And
redress of grievance. Your committee is a wonderful concept. Well, actually, it's been around for a couple hundred years, right?
It's
been in the Constitution for a long, long time. But
Sean,
I think it's wonderful that has come up. I mean, you're exposed.
Well, this is the first 2 years.
Accountability.
Right. This is the first 2 years, and you know what's really neat? We just met. I actually was privileged to set up a meeting with the Bar Association. The president, the president-elect, and the third-year president, along with a sitting judge, a historian, and the Bar News. And there were 8 of them. There were 5 of us, Mirsky, the whole gang.
Yeah.
And we sat down and we had some dialogue. And one of the things that I thought was absolutely incredible, how that they were starting to see the value of the people being able to go to a committee and air when they know they're
regular people, citizens of New Hampshire, have a recourse.
Yeah, and it's in their Constitution.
An alternative recourse to go to their state representatives and say, it's a wonderful thing. I don't know if it exists in any other state, but I think it's just wonderful that we have that availability.
Yeah, and I want to thank the speaker for getting that set up. But the whole nice idea was that the fact that even the bar was going, wow, I could see the value.
Yeah.
I could see the value because now the people have a voice. And when the people have a voice, they can let off some steam, number one. The House can say, wait a minute, we have a problem. And all the angry birds that were flying around, looking at us, trying to kill the committee, and talking it down, we're basically talking down the people. And then my Irish, I know you're Irish, right? Are you Irish or are you Scottish?
Sean Michael McGuiness? Are you kidding me?
my Irish and me got a little...
Oh, my wife has a little Italian in her. Yeah, that's the Catholic thing.
There you go. Well,
anyway.
I get a little... My feathers get ruffled because I see that the people were hurting. Yeah, and here's a way for us in... You know, you gentlemen have your skills, and you found your niche. And I think
everybody has that.
My niche was that, in that I could listen, I could hear, and I could say to somebody who knew how to fix the problem, here, go here, go here, go here. And I actually get a joy, there's something in my belly.
I know you do, because I see the light in your eyes. Yeah. You love this, and you've done a couple of television presentations, you know, and interviewed some people that, and I just know from, you know, we were campaigning in the primaries, and you had so many loyal supporters that were just passionate, you know, almost teary-eyed at what you had done to help their families. So, you know, I know, I get it.
You know what's neat, though? He started it. Along with, I bounced off of
Carl started it?
I was, 4 years ago, we got redress. And the Democratic Speaker of the House would not let us form a committee. So we were only a caucus. Okay, and we started hearing all these things, and this is why we put in legislation for removing marital masters, because the first hearings we heard usually had something to do with the divorce and some of the inequities that would one party or the other was treated.
Yeah.
And you would have been frustrated. I was just going to say that. If you were there for 2 years listening to that, not being able to do too much.
And having your hands tied.
And had no way of cross-examining, or not even cross-examining, just talking to the Justice Department, for example. They completely stonewalled us about when we started asking questions about procedural matters.
Right.
Not about the facts. We had the facts there, but the procedures were not being followed, the normal procedures.
Due process, things like that.
I guess because you didn't have any teeth back then.
That's right.
And the problem is, one of the things is that the family courts were basically an equity court, and I think we're going to be introducing legislation very soon to change that, which is, it's good for the people. Therefore, then you have to go by, then you have to go by statute and rules that are already in place. We have a good system. It's just that we've got to tweak it so that when a rule is, or an order, or a statute is in place, it is abided by. If you go into an equity court,
accountability part of the equation, right?
Exactly.
I mean, accountability always seems to be the
That's
variable
the major thing that we're going to have
the
to
algorithm.
Do, not only with redress, Sean, but with all the committee, all the agencies of the government. They don't know how to be accountable.
Question 1 on the ballot is no income tax. How do you? What do you guys think?
Oh, well, I think that
that's a loaded question.
I will shoot me if I ever vote for an income tax. It's not happening in my mind.
Right.
I think,
and the reason is, I mean, there's a lot of logic out there that says, well, if we had an income tax, maybe we could reduce property taxes, or we could reduce sales tax.
It'll never happen.
But don't we all understand that that's never going to happen?
Right.
all the
taxes
examples
are you know, I mean, I think about the when I lived in Massachusetts, Mike Dukakis, you know, we're only going to do a temporary increase from 5 to 5.5, and we're going to roll it back the next year. Well, it never got rolled back, and that was 25 years ago.
Right.
It's never, once you let the wolf into the chicken coop, the game is over.
Right.
So New Hampshire, being the unique state we are, we have to be resourceful in how we raise our revenue. But I will never, and I'll say this to my constituents, and I'll say it publicly everywhere I go, that I will never vote to allow an income tax in this state because, you know.
Well, I think that this
I just
income tax being in the Constitution is even a good thing to do.
Right.
Because it removes it, takes it off the table. We don't argue about this at all. Right. We don't take a pledge. We do. It's there I think we all agree that this is best. No income tax, a unique thing for New Hampshire. No sales tax. That's still open.
There are,
but you know, and you're right. I mean, you can go to New Jersey, Connecticut, Maryland, and what did they do? They got the sales tax in. They got the income tax
and
in.
It's
and
never
now
ending.
it's almost it's almost double digits in some
it's repressive.
areas.
It suppresses business. People are running from the state. Look at all the people that are fleeing California right now. But there are other states like New Hampshire that don't have an income tax, and they're doing just fine.
What do you think about revenue sharing?
Well, revenue sharing in what way? It's the details.
Yeah, the devil is in the details.
Right. Well, what the state was sharing revenues with the towns and the cities, and I was having some discussions with some people today about that, and some of the towns say, hey, you know, we want some of that money back, and they're struggling because, of course, they got budgets. That means they got the fire trucks that they have to purchase, you know, police cars and the whole 9 yards, and you know, the state's got this big. Yeah, you know, it's ours. You know, how do you fight against the state when you're a little town?
Yeah, I would confess that I don't really understand how that.
It depends on how you want to share revenue. Education's the big one right now.
Of course.
We're talking about that. And I think the approach that we wanted to do, we got a constitutional amendment that did pass the override of the governor's veto. That was a start in trying to say that the state has some responsibility, that the legislature determines what it is.
Right.
But you really need to have education local.
Right.
And you have to control local, what the education is and how much you're going to spend on it. I think the people are not cognizant enough of the control they should have on a local basis. The state comes in, if they, you know, have something for disadvantaged children or some of the other things, or construction, they can, you know, they can work some kind of a formula out where they provide some aids, some financial aid that the state can share, and that, you know,
almost like a supplement or something.
That's right. It's and not you don't get the same every year because your needs change, especially if it's a building oriented thing, or if you have a large number of people with earning below the poverty line.
Right.
You know, some of those things, they're different, and I think the state shares a certain responsibility on that.
I heard a really unique idea on the radio today. How about calling, instead of having, say, Broad Street School, be called Broad Street School? If BAE wants to donate their name to the school for a certain, say, $50,000 or something.
Isn't that some of the legislation that they're wanting to allow?
I just think it's a cool idea.
It's not only
like
schools.
Commercializing.
Well, at least it allows, you know, a business to advertise. They put a little extra money into the education. It kind of alleviates. You know, it's cool. The PTO at Broad Street, it was in 2 weeks they raised $19,000 with Yankee Candle. Tracy's on the PTO.
Which is very clever and wonderful.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's just...
It's almost...
Well, you know, they're talking about doing it for highways, too.
Yeah, well, why not? If the businesses want to invest in it.
I mean, that's where we have a shortfall, too, is in our
I know, and that's a serious shortfall.
Yeah.
You know, we got to...
So, I mean, you might see little advertisements on the toll booth.
I don't know. There's something, it kind of violates some kind of a sacred thought I have that, but...
Here's the thing.
You know,
if the federal government...
I can't articulate, but...
If the federal government gives you that money, there's a string attached to it.
Yeah.
If a business puts their name on it,
That's
hey, visit our website.
Yeah.
No strings attached, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a...
That's a neat idea to raise revenue. I'm sure I'd love a highway named after me someday.
There you go.
We'll see. Yeah.
It only cost you $10,000.
Yeah.
It's a little bit strange.
Welcome to the Avard Highway. Well, it's a dead-end street now.
You want a highway.
No, but there's a lot of serious things that people are thinking about. We have to, one of the unique things, I think, of the way they raise money, it's spread across a broad number of different ways of getting it. And therefore, you don't have the ups and downs. They somehow smooth out the overall income.
Right, or somehow it's broad-based is what you're trying to describe, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not too painful for any individuals.
Or any group
companies, individuals, businesses, and that it's kind of a passive...
And at the same time, you're broadening the base, you're helping the businesses. whether it's a tourist business or whether it's manufacturing or service, you know, all you want to do is make the environment better for those people.
Yes,
and
you
you'll get
do.
your income, which will allow you to do some of the things you'd want to do, not just what you have to do.
Right.
Now, in our first, I think it was our first season there, first term there, we voted to reduce the rooms and meals tax.
Yes.
And then some of the seasoned gentlemen tabled it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to put this, and it never came off the table. And I think I remember scratching my head saying, what happened? And it never came off the table. Now, obviously, they still wanted to keep that revenue, but it's almost as though they kind of went against their own philosophy that if you reduce the revenues, you're going to increase production. Not revenue, but if you reduce the tax rate, you're going to increase production. And I'm sure that the small restaurants and everybody, I guess even the hospitals would like to see that. I don't know if they're getting. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's an example of a targeted tax. And then, I don't know what the legislature was back in, I didn't follow it that closely back when that law was passed, but they're targeting a group of business people that can't defend themselves.
Right. Well, we passed it, and then some guys tabled it, and I'm thinking, why did we do that?
Well, because now they have the revenue, and we lost all the stimulus money, and we were cutting the budget in the last couple of years, and
well, that was the problem. I mean, even with the county,
it's a big. As you think how you're going to manage this budget, we don't want to cut this, but it was an onerous, selective, targeted tax.
Right.
It's like the LLC tax, which everyone rose up in the state, and they repealed that pretty quick. That was before we ever got into office.
Well, tourism being a big part of our state, I mean, we want to reduce the tax and take a little bit of burden off.
Targeted taxing.
Right.
well, I think you're going to find that the Ways and Means is going to really look through just the way they did. I mean, I can't believe still that their income projection was within, what, 1%?
They did a fantastic job. They did a wonderful job. And I do remember the arguments on the floor of the House and reading all that material that they were right on.
Mm-hmm. We're not going to raise any taxes, but we're going to see whether we have broadened the base at all, and whether some of the things we've done with rules and regulations as well as business taxes help businesses grow. Mm-hmm. We've heard of several new companies coming into the area, or several expanding right here in Nashua even. Yeah. So I think it takes a while to get that shift, get the companies that might be interested to come here.
Yeah. So, I think also I would just add to that thought by saying continuity, consistency.
Right. In
the
legislation
in the legislature. That I think that the three of us should be reelected again, because we're going to provide some consistency.
Absolutely.
And we're all, the three of us, reasonable men. But understanding that we have to attract business to the state, and we can't be a volatile state where, geez, what's New Hampshire going to do tomorrow? Mm-hmm. We're an attractive place to come and do business here.
If I can give a quick shout out to Tom Lazzara, who ran as
he ran in our district. A wonderful guy.
He did a good job, and I would like to see him get a little more involved, and maybe see if one of us decides not to run next time, maybe bring him along and show him how what's going on, and as far as whether on any issue. But I think it's incumbent on some of the senior guys to take in some of the new blood to show them how this works, because I remember walking in there. I mean, I was drinking out of a fire hose, and I was kind of overwhelmed, and I think everybody is.
You did the first year.
And I just wanted to hats off. He ran a good campaign, and I think he's going to be a future legislator.
Local or state.
Yeah.
He could run for something local.
Yeah. So anyway, hats off to him, and I wanted to thank him for running. And
we are a very interesting state, since we're all citizen legislators, and we do it because we love it and we care about our country and our state.
Right.
And I think that it's a very proud thing when I talk to people in business around the country. I'm very, very proud of this fact.
Well, we often have to see that we have a Republican governor, and I think it makes it a little bit smoother.
I think so. I think so, and I'm, fond of.
I mean, he's business oriented. He has.
Avard, yeah.
He's conservative, and I think that
He's
we have
friendly
to be
to
a
business,
little bit cognizant of our fiscal responsibilities.
I think he's going to have a really good interest in education too, and I think
That's another thing.
He's
yes.
got a strong background there, and that's going to really help us because we really got to bump up our education, and getting a little more diverse, making sure that when the kids graduate, that if they're not going to go to college, at least they have some work skills. At least they're ready to get into the workforce, whether it's manufacturing, which is a big push these days,
right.
or any other area. Right now, it's just too cookie cutter. And the teachers are doing the best. I mean, we met with teachers at Elm Street, and they're really dedicated.
A lot of them really are.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a committee I could be on, other than commerce, because I love my committee, it might be education.
Yeah.
Because I'm fascinated by it, and I fully admit I don't really understand all the intricacies of it, because there's but the accountability seems to me, I think we have good schools here in New Hampshire, and certainly Nashua.
I think we do, but I think also the charter schools are helping out too.
They're helping out, and I know my kids did do some parochial school, and they were taught very well, and it was a very disciplined environment. Right. And I hope that is happening now in the grammar schools, public grammar schools here in Nashua. I just hope it is. I trust, I have no fear that we have a problem in Nashua, Manchester, most of New Hampshire.
Most of the big cities.
But there are public schools in deep trouble across the country, and you scratch your head.
And money's not necessarily the answer.
Exactly. That's good. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
wait, no, it isn't. And
money,
I think
throwing money at it doesn't make it stick to the wall.
I wonder if the teachers had a little more control over what they do, if things would get a little bit better.
That's a good.
And I don't know if that's.
I think so, but in the meantime, I think the charter schools are sort of holding their feet to the fire because they're taking a lot of children. I had the opportunity to going to that the Academy for Science and Technology here in Nashua.
Yeah.
It has some 6th to 8th grade. It's only 5 years. They have over 400 people going to that charter school now.
What's the big beef with what's happening up in Concord? I thought that some of the money wasn't allocated because of the Attorney General.
No. Well, no. It's the Attorney General interpreted a law saying that if you approve it and the charter school doesn't get the money, they can sue the Board of Education. And I don't know whether that's true or not. The mechanism had been, and I don't know whether the Attorney General knew this or not, that once the Board of Education reviewed the application and says, yes, you have a good application, then they figure out how much money, and the Finance Committee transfers the money into the account. Oh. They had allocated all the money that had already been transferred into that particular account. But they're $5 million, I think it was short, or maybe it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And the Finance Committee is saying, how come you guys never asked us to transfer the money?
Oh, boy.
So there are some people pointing at one another.
It's a little tricky.
And whether they wanted to make it for own political purposes or whether it's just something cover your rear end type of thing. There's money there for charter schools. The legislation says that they're going to have money. Right. It's just when it's allocated.
We're going to have Kate Baker on Speak Up pretty soon. She's pretty much she's a pusher boy when it comes to the charter schools, and she wants to get that out there to make sure that there are options. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of Kate Baker, but she's a real big advocate for it. She's up in the Manchester area. But
the Academy here in Nashua is going to have another open house sometime, I think, next week in the evening from 6 to 8. I'd recommend anybody going out to see that. The way they meld the classes together is phenomenal. They really work with the child, and some children are in 2 or 3 grades at the same time, depending on the subject matter. And
that's kind of
it's very interesting. They blend it, and if the person is aggressive enough and wants to learn, they move them into the next
They
level.
allow them to go.
Yeah.
It seemed to work in the past,
And,
right? One-room schoolhouse.
they have, I tell you that.
Oh, well, good point.
That's right.
That's good, yeah.
And in a way, that's the same thing. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit more advanced. I mean, everybody has a laptop there. They bring their own laptops, but
Interesting.
they have engineering. They're teaching engineering to some of these kids on, beam strength and
That's
what kind of
fascinating.
loads
I
and
think
everything.
that's wonderful.
And all these things. Yeah, it's not
these
just
kids have
teaching
the
the
aptitude for
principles.
that,
It's
absolutely.
teaching application of the principles.
Right,
And that's what to keep people.
and that's what
interested.
makes it interesting. And I know that, I struggled through elementary schools,
Yeah.
but when I actually started paying my way through a private school, and I had a certain interest, and as soon as I became interested, I realized this was a huge light bulb went off with me. But I learned differently than the smarty pantses in the
right.
school. I had a different technique. I needed either a one-on-one or I had to be hands-on or see how it applies. And once I did, I excelled. But that's everybody's different. So it's cookie cutter. We've got to change.
That's right. You got to be able
Well,
to
I would
adapt.
also throw in, my kids went through parochial school and the grammar school, and there was, I would throw in the element of discipline. You can't be disrespectful, you get thrown out.
Right.
And it's an important thing to consider discipline in education. Unfortunately, I sometimes wonder, charter schools maybe won't have that problem, the parochial schools won't have that problem, but sometimes in the public schools, you can't control these kids, and it descends sometimes, and sadly for many that want to be educated, some of these classrooms may descend into anarchy because.
Well, I know
Anyway,
that.
that's why you
I'm
have to
throwing
be able to
discipline
sit-
in there. I'm throwing discipline in the
yeah.
pot.
I know that in some of the public schools with the no tolerance on a lot of things. I
You
mean,
can't
these,
even
right.
you can't even say no,
But
Johnny,
it's not-
don't do that.
Yeah, it's not practical sometimes. It's absolutely, no deviation. You have to be able to accommodate the individual.
Well,
If
common
somebody
sense.
comes in with some kind of a knife, he can't be
Oh, well,
suspended
yeah.
with that. If it's just happened to, he was bringing it in to put the peanut butter on the bread or something like that,
Well,
There's
that's the irrational
a lot of extreme
rule.
cases.
I mean,
It's
you
too-
wonder
it's too
that
application.
anybody
Well,
has a brain. I mean, I could get a computer to make that decision.
But in Nashua,
Not if you have a lawyer.
It's a
just
peanut
having-
butter knife.
having gone to
a
Elm Street just
computer
not too long ago, we're sitting down with some of the teachers.
Jeez.
I was
know.
amazed at how well run. You just walking through the halls, they didn't know who I am. I'm just a nobody. I'm just a parent type of thing, and walking in, and the kids are orderly. They're not running. They're not loud.
They run a pretty good.
They got a
shop.
good shop there.
Yeah, they do.
Hats off to them.
I'm just making a general.
Well, one of the comments that one of the teachers made to us, look, if we keep them interested, they behave.
Yeah.
Yes.
They want to learn.
Well, that's
you know,
outstanding.
Otherwise,
that's a smart
know,
comment. Yeah.
they're throwing spitballs or they're talking to somebody when they shouldn't be.
Final question on the ballot, if you don't mind me bringing
Okay,
it up.
go. No,
Question number 3, Con. Do we do it?
I don't think it's necessary, but I don't know what you.
No,
You're not ready for it yet. I think we can do it by ones and twos because you get into a constitutional convention, you open it up for everything.
Get another 73A. That's what happened last time.
yeah, and it's not like this is something that's very common. I mean, when's the last time a constitutional convention?
And that's the music, so until next week.
No. Yeah,
Anyway, that was Carl,
do
by
you
the way.
mute that in church?
Yeah.
On Sunday? Yeah.
I had to make a phone call. I'm sorry.
No,
and I
that's
forgot
okay,
to
that's
turn it
okay.
off.
That's fun. But, yeah,
So I think we're all on the same page on that. There
it
are
doesn't rise to the level of...
There's one thing that I would really like to see, and I just want to plant the seed now, and I don't think we're ready for it yet. But, we have a very small Senate. Mm-hmm. We have 24 senators, and I think that's a lot of power. Mm-hmm. I think when somebody says they're a very deliberate body,
Yeah.
I say, I'm sorry, but I think the House is a little bit more deliberate, and it has the ability to be more deliberate because we can spend a little more time on a particular subject. 24 people doing the work, 400 people, it's just not right.
Well, that's an excellent point. They're overworked, so they're
at least double the size, make it 50 or 20 or 40 or something to that effect.
Well,
and just for the viewers to know that, you know, we've expanded as a state. You're entitled to that type of representation. There's a lot of power in just 24 senators.
Yeah, there are.
And you know, that'll work both sides, Democrat and Republican. It'll swing just like it always does in every election. But at least it opens up the workload, and you'll have a little bit better representation in the future, I think. I don't think the House needs to get any bigger, but possibly the Senate. And that would be the only thing that I would see that would need to be changed if we were going to have a concurrent.
I kind of agree with, even though I don't know where we put the people. We're really crowded.
Yeah. Well, that's a physical consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, how many seats?
You can always use some other.
You just make the seats
lawn
smaller.
chairs or something like that.
No, I don't mean the.
We can fit them in there.
Yeah, they can fit them in their area where they vote on it, but they're just.
You need $100,000 to run for Senate, or $60,000 to $100,000.
Right.
I mean, that takes it away from the average person. It's just a reality. And it only gets the connected involved with that.
Right.
And that, again, I'm not so sure that's necessarily a good thing. Where, you know, if you could reduce that to maybe 25 to 30,000, it's a little bit more reachable for some people. But right now, you know, you've got to have some serious backers, and all those backers are going to be corporations. They're going to be lobbyists,
or unions, or political parties, or special interests of any other kind. But that's true. I mean, if you want to run for Senate in the state of New Hampshire,
well, you or I, we just need to do 2,000 or 3,000.
Making friends with people. We don't necessarily have to do that, but
right. Well, I just thought that would be.
Let me throw out something else. If you do go, say, you double it, would they still have 2-year terms, or would you have 4-year terms and all? You know, every half of them elected every 2 years.
3.
3 years.
3-year term.
For a senator, and still everything else is 2 for a governor, 2 for us.
I was suggesting 4 years so that you have the same cycle, but only half the
I'm sorry.
half
Yes.
the Senate.
In my mind, I was thinking 3 years to do that.
No.
Yeah.
It's just every 2 years. But you have a 4-year term. Half of them get elected the first 2 years, and the other half the second 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's an idea that we ought to discuss. I agree with you.
It would provide some stability.
Yeah, and
which is what they do.
Not the focus of the. I don't say power, but it is a hard thing. People. Well, how many senators decide not to run again because they just couldn't?
There's these 4 of them that I know.
I know.
Yeah. I think there's 6 of them that did that.
And it cost them a ton of money to be in there, and
their wives were going to divorce them, or their husbands were going to divorce them, and they couldn't do it, and it was a hard. It was a lot of work.
It's a commitment, and you know, again, they only get the $100 a year too. So I just want to put that out. You know, it is the people's government. This belongs to the people, and if they have the power to change that, I mean, they don't want. Obviously, it's going to move at a snail's pace to get this out there. Maybe in 5 or 10 cycles or something, we'll get to that. Ideally, it would be sooner than that.
We're not going to change the way you know,
well, it's not something we're going to.
This is all hypothetical talk anyway.
Next 2 years, but
it's called a seed. I'm planting a seed.
Right.
Yeah, I know. We're just talking.
Well, what do you think the most important thing will happen in the next 2 years? You pick any one thing?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting question you asked, but I think a lot has to do with events on the national stage. Where is the national election going to take us?
Definitely healthcare.
I mean, to me, that is, you know, I don't know what we can do here in New Hampshire.
Well, we're going to have to control some of what we can control ourselves.
You know what's happening in New Hampshire, which is really cool. We're taking the lead, and this is my perspective on one.
We're a microscopic state.
We are, but one of the things
we do a lot of wonderful things, and people take notice, but we're still microscopic.
The nation is watching on all of us here in New Hampshire because we do have a redress of grievance committee. I'm giving it another plug, but I'm telling you right now, all the other states are saying, "Whoa, go ahead, Maine, California, Georgia." They're emailing me saying, "Wow, how do we get that going?" And why is that? Because the people are making the government more accountable. That answers your question. That's my committee. I'm giving it a plug. It needs to live because the people will have a voice. And right now, I'm not so sure the other side cares about this committee. I have not seen any support. Not one
No,
Democrat
they don't, because
has sponsored a person.
Because your committee investigates the bureaucracy or the establishment, and I think that the other side is wonderful people on the other side, but they're more vested in the establishment. So that doesn't help them
I think
at all.
what's going to change is the way we work with the government. If we get a new governor in with different perspective, and we have the committees that we have now looking into rules and regulations, evaluations,
Keeping everyone honest,
seeing if they're operating effectively
with oversight.
By evaluating with oversight. It's the oversight part of it that makes sure that the oversight is being listened to by the agencies. They're going to be evaluated on how well they set their objectives and accomplish their objectives.
And it'll be both sides. There'll be
the way it
Democrats
should
and
be, I
Republicans
think.
on there.
That's it. We're going to try to get more for our money. And I think that's what the Speaker has set out as his objective, because he still sees excess money out there.
And we owe that to the people.
That's right.
We owe that to the people. So that's my vision for the state.
And we owe them a responsible state government.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because we're saving money here and there, but a responsible.
Well, that's why I say effective.
State government.
Yeah.
Right.
That you're going to be doing what we need to be doing.
I want my state employees to be enthusiastic about helping my constituents get their business done.
You know, another thing is people, it's not all about money either. You know, that's the thing that we lose sight of. You know, everybody's talking budget, you know, money, and it's very important, obviously, but also is justice. Justice and equity, and if we lose sight of the justice, if we lose sight of transparency, people lose confidence in their government, and when that happens, it just breaks down, and we have to maintain that integrity. And
people become cynical if they don't think that the leaders in Concord or the various agencies are doing their job. They become cynical and despondent, and you know.
The last thing I hate is somebody say to me, you know, all those politicians up in Concord, hey, guy, listen.
It's the bureaucracy, it's not.
I clean carpets, man. I'm one of you guys. Right? I'm a small guy. I'm a little guy. I'm your voice.
I'm not the politician that's doing that to you.
Chill, you know. We're there trying to do a good job, and I know that it's on both sides, and I really believe that.
Of course.
I know that there's some passion on the other side as well, but I know in the future we'll work together, but I really think that if we get this instituted as a statutory committee with oversight.
You mean your committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm not going to be there forever. I can't afford this, but we can pass it on to the next generation, and that, if anything, we've given the people a little bit more. Hey, listen, get your act together.
That's what it was originally intended to do, right? Right. I mean, that's the history of.
Yeah, we don't want this to be who you know. We want it to be, you know, you speak up and we'll listen.
Yeah.
And by all the way, you know, if people got issues, speak up, and they can want to speak up and be heard, come on to my show.
Okay, people, and all you listening in now, we want to hear from you. If you have anything that you have that you want us to do up there in Concord, let us know. If you want to have some discussion or some guests that are on our show, let us know. You can contact NashuaGOP.org for our individual emails or websites to contact us, or just write us according to the addresses that are in that website. So listen in. We'll have more interesting guests, and there'll be a lot of people that'll be talking between now and the election day. So we're doing it for you, and please, we want to listen to what you have to say. So thank you, and good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.